Let's look at chapter 17. I just want to remind you of a few things that are just really, really important. Do you remember verse 3? We started with man, man. Man, man. Whatever man, any man of the house of Israel. We're talking to men. This whole chapter was about the meat that we slaughter and feed our families with. Yehovah has a way that he wants to see it done. Look what it says on verse 3. Man, man, whatever man, any man of the house of Israel who kills shakats, an ox, or the flocks, lamb or goat. It says in the camp or outside the camp. We don't have a camp. But if we have a camp, it says in the very next verse that we're supposed to bring it to Yehovah. It says, who does not bring it to the door of the tent of meeting. To bring his offering to Yehovah's face. It says, the guilt of bloodshed will be impugned on that man. Man, we're talking about an Ish. The house of Israel, his Ish, men. He goes on. Probably the most important verse in this chapter and probably the most misunderstood is this verse right here, verse 7. It says, they shall no more slaughter their slaughterings to demons. They offer their sacrifices to demons. Oh my gosh, it just confuses us. We're talking about the things that we eat. And when we have this word demons, instead of this word right here, sayir, it throws us off completely. We end up thinking this chapter has nothing to do with us because I don't slaughter anything to demons. I don't offer sacrifices to demons. I suggested last week that this word that's being translated as demons, here it's goats, probably is best understood flesh. Do you remember the last time we used this goats before we had this very verse? It was in chapter 16. We were talking about the two goats. Sayir goats. One was slaughtered before Yehovah, and the other one was released into the wilderness alive. We have to understand this verse with what the juxtaposition is. Look what it says. They shall no more slaughter their slaughters. Let's say flesh, after whom they played the harlot. Yehovah has one way that we're supposed to slaughter our slaughters. The things that we're going to eat. We're going to have the blood go into the ground. Well, really, we're supposed to bring it to him if we're in the camp or outside the camp. But what if we don't have a camp nearby? This is what we talked about last week, and this is so very important that we understand this. Let me see if I can find the verse I'm looking for. Here it is. When Yehovah, on the right-hand side, when Yehovah thy Elohim enlarges thy borders, as he has promised thee, and thou say, let me eat meat. Let me eat meat. I can't bring it to you, Father. You're too far away. I'm not outside the camp anymore. I'm not in the camp. What do I do? This is where I've been. This is why I stopped eating meat 3 years ago. Let me eat meat, because thou longs to eat meat. You may eat as much as your heart desires. Look what he says. If the place where Yehovah thy Elohim chooses to put his name is too far from thee, then thou may slaughter from thy herd and from thy flocks. This is what we're talking about, the ox and the goat and the sheep. You may slaughter from the herd and from the flock which Yehovah has given thee, just as I have commanded thee. And thou may eat within thy gates as much as thy heart desires. Just as the gazelle and the deer are eaten, so thou may eat them. The unclean and the clean alike may eat them. Only be sure that thou do not eat the blood, for the blood is the life. Thou may not eat the life with the meat. Thou shalt not eat it. Thou shalt pour it out on the earth like water. Oh, my Father, thank you. This is where we are today. We can slaughter our ox and our sheep and our goat, our beef, our mutton, and our goats. Just like we slaughter, what does it say? The gazelle and the deer. Make sure their blood gets put out on the ground. This keeps the blood, the bloodim is the word that they used last week. It keeps the blood from falling on us. Is it possible that the meat that we're eating right now, the meat that we're buying from the grocery stores, that hasn't had the blood go into the ground, it's gone into some drain somewhere, or it's been recaptured and sold as dog food or cat food or some other kind of substance, that blood is on us. Look what it's set up here. I'm looking for the verse that talks about the guilt of bloodshed. Here it is, verse 4. Guilt of bloodshed. When the blood's not killed the way it's supposed to be killed, the bloodshed is on us. The blood. The blood. It doesn't say guilt. There's no guilt in this verse. It simply says blood. The blood shall be impugned on him. Blood he has shed, the man shall be cut off from among his people. These are things that get us cut off from among our people. I want to remind you what we saw last week. Guilt of bloodshed. Here it is. This is 19 of Leviticus. Now, if Yehovah thy Elohim enlarges your territory, as he swore to your fathers to give you the land which he has promised to give to thy fathers. And if you keep all these commandments and do them which I command thee today, to love Yehovah thy Elohim, to walk always in his ways, then thou shalt add 3 more cities for thyself besides these 3, lest he shall shed blood innocent in the midst of thy land, which Yehovah thy Elohim gives thee for inheritance, and thus the blood. They have guilt of bloodshed. We're talking about somebody who's been killed. Lest the blood, the guilt of, they put guilt of bloodshed. It simply says blodim. All the blood is what we're talking about, plural blood. All the blood shall be upon thee. But if anyone hates his neighbor, I don't even want to finish that. That's what we're talking about, the bloodim. Here's the verse that we're looking at right now, 3 and 4. But now let's look at this one right here. This says bladim also. I think this is enlightening. Look what it says. This is Psalms 51. You probably can't see it from the top, but I'm going to read the first line. Create in me a clean heart. O Elohim, renew a steadfast spirit within me. Do not cast me away from your presence, and do not take your Holy Spirit from me. Restore to me the joy of your salvation, and uphold me with your generous spirit. Then I will teach transgressors your ways, and sinners shall be converted to you. Oh, Father, use me. Look at what he says now. Deliver me from the guilt of bloodshed. Oh, Elohim. There's no guilt of bloodshed. It says, deliver me from the bloodim. Deliver me from the blood. What blood? Have we shed innocent blood? I think it's coming from this verse right here, Leviticus 17:4. We have not slaughtered our animals the way they're supposed to be slaughtered. And the meat that we're eating, that blood is on us. Everything in this chapter has to do with man, whatever man, any man. The first one is talking about just Israel. It's not even talking about the Ger, but all the rest of them are talking about the Ezra and the Ger. Sometimes they're called the house of Israel. Sometimes they're called the Israel seed, aka and perversely known as the children of Israel. No children of Israel. These are spiritually born men, ish. Deliver me from the guilt of bloodshed, O Elohim. The Elohim of my salvation, and my tongue shall sing aloud to your righteousness. Well, I'll stop there. So much to learn. I want to correct myself. Last week we talked about what dies naturally or is torn. They just say torn. They added by beasts, but that's what we're talking about. I don't think there's a problem there. He says whether he is native born, Ezra, or stranger. Again, still going with Israel's seed and those who dwell with them, the Ger, the stranger who dwells with them. I said torn, and I likened it onto the chicken that we had last week, the week before, whenever it was, that was hurt, got a cut on his side. But it was a deep enough cut that we decided to take the chicken, slaughtered him for our food. And I thought, oh, maybe I did something wrong. But you know what? This is talking about something that dies naturally. This is dead. These are dead animals that we're talking about. Or was torn. Okay, if it was torn, we don't eat it. But this makes it look like we can eat it. And every person who eats what died, or what was torn, a native of our country, the Ezra, remember that's just the one word, Ezra, or Ger, he shall wash his clothes, bathe in water, and be unclean until evening. Sounds like we can eat it. But we looked at this stuff underneath here. Look at this. We said the priests can't eat what dies naturally or was torn. We said, it says in Exodus, and you shall be holy to me, holy men to me, men. You shall not eat meat torn in the field. Okay, torn in the field. This is meat that died. It's dead. But this says we shall not eat it. This says we shall eat it. Which is it? There's some confusion here, isn't there? Well, the last one was Deuteronomy 14. Again, that's about food. You shall not eat anything that dies of itself. He says, you may give it to the ger. It says alien in my Bible, but it's ger. Who is within your gates? Makes sense. The stranger within your gates, doesn't it? That he may eat it. So we can give what dies of itself to the ger. Or you may sell it to a foreigner, a ben nakar, someone outside of Israel. For you are a holy people to Yehovah. You shall not, well, when you worry about that, that's another thought altogether. All right. So why does this say, whatever of your own country shall wash your clothes, bathe in water and be unclean until evening? Challenges. Let's start something new. Then Yehovah spoke to Moses. Here we are, 18. Listen to what this says. Speak to Israel's seed, the spiritually born men. These are the Ezra men. And say to them, I am Yehovah, your Elohim. Ani, Yehovah, Elohim. There's the Elohim right here. And this says, your Elohim, plural, Elohim. Israel's seeds, Elohim. Not the ger's Elohim. Israel's seeds, Elohim. Not the women's Elohim, their man. They serve their man. Oh, so much to learn. Listen to what he says. According to the doings, I'm going to read it here on the right. According to the doings of the land of Egypt, where you dwelt. The doings. He says, you shall not do. And according to the doings of the land of Canaan, where I'm bringing you, you shall not do, nor shall you walk in their ordinances. Do you hear that? How does that fit with what we've been taught about obeying the laws of the land? You shall not walk in their ordinances. He says, you shall observe my judgments and keep my ordinances to walk in them. I am Yehovah, your Elohim. I always like to have a comma there. I am Yehovah, your Elohim. Not the people of the land. You shall ever keep my statutes and my judgments, which if a man, ish, here we go, which if a man, here it is right there, which if the man, that doesn't say ish, it's the man, same thing, which if the man does, he shall live by them. I am Yehovah. I put Yehovah instructs Israel's seed, but we will see that these statutes apply to the ger who dwells with them as well. Dwells with the seed. Remember, you got to leave the kingdom of your birth. This is what he's talking about. According to the doings of the land of Egypt, where you dwelt. You don't dwell there anymore. I don't dwell there anymore. I left in 2000. Yes, it appears I'm still in the same land, doesn't it? But it has to do with the covenants that we have and the things that we choose to do. We want to set our life so that we can serve only Yehovah. This is what Abraham did. He dwelt in the land of promise. It was still the Jebusites' land, the Canaan's land, as if in a strange country. That's what we do right now. Those of us who are coming out are dwelling in the land of our birth, as if in a strange country. Oh, I've seen this. I've seen it in court, that Yehovah's kingdom is acknowledged. It changed my life forever. I'll never go back to the kingdoms of this world. This is part of the reason why I've heard not only attorneys, but judges say, we don't have any control over this man. Oh, so much to tell you. I talk about much of this in my Coming Out series. I encourage you to listen to that. Let's go to verse 3. We've kind of read this ahead. Yeah, talking about coming out. For Yehovah your Elohim will bless you, just as he promised you. You shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow. You shall reign over many nations, but they shall not reign over you. Here he's repeating himself in Leviticus 20. We're not going to get there today. We'll get there next week. And you shall not walk in the statutes of the nations, which I am casting out before you. For they commit all these things, and therefore I abhor them. But I have said to you, you shall inherit the land, and I will give it to you to possess, a land flowing with milk and honey. I am Yehovah, your Elohim, who has separated you from the peoples of the lands. Look what it says in Esther. I think this is so beautiful. Talking about obeying the law of the land. It says, and Haman, this is where I go, said to King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of your kingdom. They're living in the king's land, but it says their laws are different from all other peoples, and they do not keep the king's laws. Therefore, it is not fitting for the king to let them remain. You know what? That's going to happen again. It's going to happen in the last days. Those of us who have come out experience the persecution already. Don't get to fly on the airplanes. Don't get to take vacations to other countries because we can't get on the planes. They won't acknowledge the fact that we don't have their IDs. Used to be able to get on the planes with my church ID, my ecclesiastical ID, but I can't anymore. You shall observe my statutes and my judgments and keep my ordinances to walk in them. I am Yehovah, your Elohim. Ani Yehovah Elohim. Verse 5. You shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments, which if the man does, he shall live by them. I am Yehovah. 6. None of you. Look what it says. They put none of you. Again, it says ish, ish. Ish, ish. Here, let me go to it. Ish, ish. First two words, ish, ish. No man. Not any man. No man ever. No man whatsoever. Maybe we could say it like that. No man shall approach anyone who is near of kin to him. To uncover, here's the word that they're talking about, to galal his nudity. This actually says her nudity. Really? It gets translated as his nakedness. Ooh, it's really interesting that they call it his nakedness. This is near of kin to him. What does that mean? It's seed. It's about seed. It's about what's come from your body, which you produced. We don't take those to ourselves for sexual relations. He says, I am Yehovah. Let's put that in purple as well so we remember it's there. Why does it say his nakedness when it really is saying her nakedness? I think the answer is found in verse 10. Look what it says here. The nakedness of your son's daughter. Your son's daughter is coming from you. Or your daughter's daughter. Their nakedness you shall not uncover. These are the same two words. For theirs is your nakedness. This is where they get this, and this is why they say his nakedness, to uncover his nakedness. I am Yehovah. There's other versions that are saying this. Sometimes I like to look at the other versions. I think they help me see things that I might not otherwise see. I like to see how they translate certain phrases because I'm trying to dig to the truth. And sometimes you find one that just really hits it nicely. Sometimes I feel like they're all are missing it. Here it says, the nakedness of thy son's daughter, or of thy daughter's daughter, even their nakedness thou shalt not uncover, for theirs is thine own nakedness. Here it says in the last one, for they are part of yourself. That's how the Bible in Basic English translated it. Verse 7. This whole chapter, after verse 6, is all about who Israel's seed has sex with. It works for the ger too. Remember, you shall have one law for those who are native born, for Israel's seed, and the Ezra, or the ger, who dwells with you. One law shall be for the native born, and for the stranger who dwells with you. We see that over and over and over. But keep in mind that the same law doesn't apply always the same way, does it? The Ezra couldn't eat that which died of itself. The ger could. Got to understand that. Just because it says one law doesn't mean we all keep the same ways. It applies differently to one man than it does to another. Depends on whether he's an Ezra or a ger. Remember, it's not about Gentiles. Yehovah didn't talk to any Gentiles. Didn't talk to anyone from Egypt. None of this is for them. They're doing the wickedness. That's what we were talking about up here. According to the doings of the land of Egypt, you shall not do. According to the lands of Canaan, where I'm bringing you, you shall not do. Nor shall you walk in their ordinances. No, they've got different ordinances. That's why we're a strange people. The nakedness of your father or the nakedness of your mother, you shall not uncover. Hear that? The nakedness of your father or the nakedness of your mother. Is he talking about homosexual relations with your father? No! We have to understand who we're talking about. We're talking about the father's woman. She may be your mother, or maybe your mother passed and he's got another woman. Or maybe she's not your father's woman anymore. I guess really that's what it is. Thy mother, who is no longer belongs to thy father. Neither one are you allowed to have sex with. You don't take your mother. You know, this whole business, uncovering your father's nakedness, it's a euphemism. A euphemism. It's a nice way of saying something perhaps painful, perhaps bad. You shall not have sex with your mother. A man passes away instead of saying a man died. We have different ways of saying things. We're saying uncovering his father's nakedness instead of saying he had intercourse with his father's woman or his father's daughter. They're all doing exactly the same thing. Here's the next one. So we've had your mother, the nakedness of your father, your mother, or the nakedness of your mother. You shall not uncover. She is your mother. You shall not uncover her nakedness. Now here's your father's woman. This is this woman who's not your mother. The nakedness of your father's woman you shall not uncover. It is your father's nakedness. She is your father's nakedness. You know, we're going to see that much of what we're seeing here in chapter 18, we're going to revisit in chapter 20. Only in chapter 20, we're going to see the judgments, these are statutes, the judgments that are related to violating these statutes. Look what it says. The man who lies with his father's woman, they want to say wife. It's not woman. It's not wife. It just says father's woman. Has uncovered his father's nakedness. Both of them shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. These are judgments for violating these instructions, these statutes. He says, the nakedness of your sister, the daughter of your father, or the daughter of your mother. The daughter of your father or the daughter of your mother. That is, the daughter of thy father is your sister. The daughter of thy mother is still your sister. Get to it different ways, can't we? If a man takes his sister, his father's daughter, or his mother's daughter, and sees her nakedness, has sex with her, and she sees his nakedness, it is a wicked thing. And they shall be cut off in the sight of their people. He has uncovered his sister's nakedness. He shall bear his guilt. You know, some of these things, I think, that seems pretty lenient. Why are they not killed? This says they shall be cut off from the sight of their people. But it doesn't say they're going to be killed, stoned. Isn't that what the last one said, stoned? Both of them shall surely be put to death. Which is worse, getting cut off from the people or being put to death? I think they both have the same long-term effect, don't they? Separation from Yehovah, because you can't be cut off from your people and still be Yehovah's people. No. That is a death sentence, isn't it? An eternal death sentence. Being put to death is not only an eternal death sentence, but it's a short-term death sentence. You're not gonna finish all your life, are you? Okay, let's move on to 9. Oh, I put up here as a stepsister's okay. You can marry a stepsister, take a stepsister. You know what, marry. Let's not even talk about marry. You can take a stepsister. Take a stepsister. You can baal a stepsister. She could become yours. Verse 10. The nakedness of your son's daughter. or your daughter's daughter. These are grandchildren now. Their nakedness you shall not uncover, for theirs is your own nakedness. Granddaughter from your son, granddaughter from your daughter. Verse 11. The nakedness of your father's woman's daughter, begotten by your father. Okay, father's woman's daughter. This is not a stepdaughter. This is your father's woman's daughter, begotten by your father. She is your sister. You shall not uncover her nakedness. 12. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's sister. This is the aunt. She is near of kin to your father. Your father's seed and her seed share the same seed. Their dad. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your mother's sister, nor your father's sister, for that would uncover his near of kin. They shall bear their guilt. Notice, this has nothing about who women take. Not there. It has everything to do with who the men are taking. Do you see how these are written? Now, this says, don't take your father's sister. What did Amram do? Remember, Amram was the father of Moses, the son of Kohath. Kohath. Yes, Kohath. Kohath was one of the three sons of Levi, and they had a sister. You don't see it very easily in the scriptures, but there was a daughter involved. Her name was Jochebed. And Moses' dad, Amram, took his father's, Kohath's sister. His father's sister, the aunt. That's who Jochebed was. And Amram took for himself Jochebed, his father's sister, as his woman. There it is right there, Exodus 6:20. And she bore him Aaron and Moses. They don't even mention Miriam. She was firstborn. They don't even mention her. And she bore him Aaron and Moses. And the years of the life of Amram were 137 years. It happened, didn't it? Was it supposed to happen? I don't think so. Why did he take Jochebed? Is it possible that her husband had died and he was bringing her into his house? Could be. She was a pretty elderly woman when she had those three children. She was 120 plus when she had those three children. Miriam, Aaron, and Moses. 13. You shall not uncover your mother's sister, again, your aunt, for she is near akin to your mother. 20 just says, they shall bear their guilt. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your mother's sister or your father's sister, for that would uncover his near of kin. They shall bear their guilt. His near of kin. His near of kin. What's his near of kin? I guess their father. Or their father's father. Or their mother's father. Same person. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's brother. Nakedness of your father's brother? What is the nakedness of your father's brother? Makes it again sound like it's some kind of homosexual thing, doesn't it? You shall not approach his woman. She is your aunt, your father's brother's woman. That's what we're talking about. The nakedness of your father's brother is your father's brother's woman. What would that be? An aunt-in-law? Don't uncover it. Here, 20. Sometimes it's nice to have chapter 20 to kind of bring these together. If a man lies with his uncle's woman. See, they said uncle's woman there instead of uncle's father. Uncle's instead of your father's brother. If a man lies with his uncle's woman, he has uncovered his uncle's nakedness. They shall bear their sin. They shall die childless. 15. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your daughter-in-law. She is your son's woman. You shall not uncover her nakedness. Now, wouldn't this fit into Exodus, where it says you shall not commit adultery, taking another man's woman? Seems like it would. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your daughter-in-law. She is your son's woman. You shall not uncover her nakedness. Her nakedness. How come it says her nakedness instead of his nakedness? Well, you know what? They all say her nakedness, don't they? That's what we saw already. Her nakedness. So I guess I can scratch that. I would expect this verse to say his nakedness. Well, as far as the translators go, I would have expected the verse to say his nakedness, even though that word actually does say her nakedness. But that's what it says all along. Her nakedness, her nakedness, her nakedness. But it's because her nakedness is his nakedness. Near of kin. Remember, that's what we saw. He says, if a man lies with his daughter-in-law, both of them shall surely be put to death. They have committed perversion. Put to death. Okay, that fits in well with Exodus 20. What is that? The 9th commandment. They have committed perversion. Their blood shall be upon them. 16. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your brother's woman. It is your brother's nakedness. Thy brother's woman. Seemed like we talked about, we talked about your father's woman and your father's brother's woman. Now we're talking about your brother's woman. She's your sister-in-law. With the exception of the Levirate marriage. Remember, if you have a brother, he takes a woman, they don't have children, but your brother dies, you take her. You take the woman, your brother's woman, and you provide seed for your brother so that he has something to inherit. He has a son to inherit what would have been his. Here it says, if a man takes his brother's woman, it is an unclean thing. He has uncovered his brother's nakedness. They, the brother and his woman, shall be childless. How does that fit into the Levirate marriage? I'd have to think about that some more. Verse 17. You shall not uncover the nakedness of a woman and her daughter. Can't take a woman and her daughter. Are we talking about doing it at the same time? A woman and her daughter? I think so. You could take her, you could take the woman, you could take the daughter, but you can't take the woman and the daughter. Nor shall you take her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter. Could you take, remember, this is about taking both. Both. Let me see what I wrote here. A woman and her daughter. A woman and her mother. Same difference, isn't it? A woman and her son's daughter is the woman and a granddaughter, woman's granddaughter. A woman and her daughter's daughter. Again, I put a step granddaughter. I guess that would be right, step granddaughter. If a man takes a woman and her mother, it is wickedness. They shall be burned with fire, both he and they, that there may be no wickedness among you. Why does Yehovah feel so strongly about that? I wonder. Is it the competition that's going involved in there? Is it because they have shared seed? But we're going to see that if a man takes a woman and she dies, you can take her sister, but you can't take the sister while the woman's still alive. If a man takes a woman and her mother, it is wickedness. They shall be burned with fire, both he and they, that there be no wickedness among you, among Israel. You shall not uncover the nakedness of a woman and her daughter, nor shall you take her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter to uncover her nakedness. So again, we're still talking, I guess this is the same verse. They are near of kin to her. We're still talking about taking two women, but they're related women. Apparently, that's not something that we are allowed to do. Nor shall you take a woman as a rival to her sister. Again, two related women, aren't we? But look what it says. To uncover her nakedness while the other is alive. So could we take that woman after her sister's passed? I think so. Here, BBE and CEV. What is CEV? Contemporary English Version. And you shall not take a woman you shall not take, this is not even there. It says a woman. I take a wife as a woman. You shall not take a woman, that's all it says. There's no wife. Wife is a woman. What does that even mean? Goofy. You shall not take a woman at the same time her sister to be competition with her in her lifetime. Here they said, as long as your woman is alive, don't cause trouble for her by taking one of her sisters as a second wife. Contemporary English Version. But look at this is exactly what Jacob did, isn't it? He took Leah and Rachel 1 week apart. Boy, that created some problems, didn't it? But Yehovah blessed that marriage, obviously. Leah got 6 kids. No, Leah gave him 7 kids. 6 boys and a woman. And Rachel gave him 2 sons. Also, and unto a woman who is set apart in her uncleanliness. I'm reading it to you the way it actually is said in the Hebrew. And unto a woman who is set apart in her uncleanliness. You shall not go to approach, nor uncover her nakedness. Contemporary Jewish Bible says, you are not to approach a woman in order to have sexual relations with her when she is unclean from her time of Nadah. Remember we talked about Nadah when we talked about the Zavs in chapter 15. The Zav and the Zuv. 20 says, if a man lies with a woman during her Nadah, and uncovers her nakedness, he has exposed her flow, and she has uncovered the flow of her blood. Both of them shall be cut off from their people. This is a serious matter. We don't take a woman in her menses. Now, we saw that there are remedies if all of a sudden, while we're having sex, her menses begins. That's not good, but it's not the end of the world. We're not going to be cut off from Israel. Remember that? 20. Moreover, you shall not lie carnally with your neighbor's woman. to defile yourself with her. Well, that fits into what we're talking about with Exodus 20, doesn't it? Let me show you. Here's Exodus 20 right here. You shall not commit adultery. Leviticus 20 says, a man who commits adultery with another man's woman, he has committed adultery. With his neighbor's woman, the adulterer and the adulteress shall be put to death. Any married woman. Don't take any married woman. You shall not let any of your seed, sperm, in this case, zara, can be a man or a woman, pass through the fire to Moloch. Nor shall you profane the name of your Elohim. I am Yehovah. How do we let our seed pass through the fire of Moloch? I think in those days, literally, they had a created idol, maybe a piece of bronze or something fashioned in an owl, perhaps, or some other fashioning that had a mouth that you threw your son and your daughter into. Is it possible we're doing this today? This word Moloch is spelled exactly the same way that Melech or king is spelled. Are they related words? If we give our son or daughter to the king, have we done the same thing? What did Father say? Nor shall you profane the name of your Elohim. I am Yehovah. Melech, reign, king, kingdom. Same word, same spelling as this word, Moloch. It says that as a king, a chief deity of the Ammonites. A king is an Elohim. The chief deity of the Amorites is an Elohim. How do we give our seed to foreign Elohim? Kings, lawmakers, and judges today. Do we? I think we do. I think we do it through marriage licenses. Because remember, when we take a marriage license, it's a three-way marriage. You and your woman and the state. We don't know it. We just do what everybody else does. But that's why the state can take away your children. They're not your children. You're just babysitting. You think they're your children. I found that out the hard way. We do it by marriage license. We do it by birth certificates. We do it by driver's licenses. The covenants that we make with these Elohim profanes the name of Yehovah. It gives them authority in our life that they should never have been given. And again, that goes right back to verse 2 through 5. According to the doings of the land of Egypt, you shall not do, nor shall you walk in their ordinances. 22. You shall not lie with a male as with a woman. It is an abomination. We don't take another man. Boy, in this day and age, that is becoming more and more acceptable. Where is it going to end? I think it's going to end in the destruction of all the nations on the earth, except Yehovah's people, those who have left those nations. Do not lie with a male, as one lies with a woman. This is Hebrew. In Hebrew, it's mishkavi isha. Literally means as you lie to sleep with a woman. As you lie to sleep with a woman by the introduction of the male member. Don't do it. 2 places talks about what was going on. The one in Judges here, I put 2 biblical narratives highlight this theme. One about the men of Sodom. Remember, that's where the sodomy is coming from, in Genesis 19, and how they were treating the people that were coming to their city. In Judges 19, we also see a city that is corrupted. A man of Levi, I think he was from Ephraim, had stopped in Gibeah for the night. Actually stayed in the middle of town. And an old man had come in from the field. He was working in the field, and he saw this man and his concubine. Isn't that interesting? The Levite had a concubine. Saw the man and his concubine in the city. And said, "Oh no, you can't stay inside this. You can't stay in the middle of the city." I don't know if it was a well or a park or what exactly it was. But he said, "You can't stay here. You got to come to my house." He brought him to the house. But the people of the city found him, just like they tried to do in Sodom. Remember, we saw what the wickedness was being done in Sodom and Gomorrah. And they came to them, wanted to have sex with the men, but they gave her the woman instead. You think, oh, how could they do such a thing? They had their way with her all night long. She was alive in the morning, but apparently died before he had gotten her back to the land of Ephraim, wherever he was living. And he divided her up and sent her to 12 nations. Well, that started a big brouhaha between Benjamin and all the other tribes, because Gibeah was in the land of Benjamin, I believe. Again, homosexual acts. It is also thought that the pagan priests called Diddishim regularly engaged in homosexual acts. This is the term, remember we talked about this, the dog's pay. Maker kalav, the dog's pay, mentioned in Deuteronomy 23. We saw it earlier. We talked about it a few weeks ago. Refers to the wages of a male prostitute who serviced men, not women. In ancient societies, male homosexuality is called tu'ava, an abhorrence, an abomination. This is the first time this is being used in this chapter. It is a tu'ava, an abomination. It occurs 4 times in this chapter. So there's 22, 26, 27, and 29. We'll see it as we finish this chapter. What's this here? Deuteronomy 23. You shall not bring the wages of a harlot or the price of a dog to the house of Yehovah, your Elohim. That's where we talked about it. We were talking about vows. For both of these are an abomination to Yehovah, your Elohim. And then verse 20, here it is again. If a man lies with a male as he lies with a woman, both of them have committed abominations. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. All right. 23. You shall not mate with an animal to defile yourself with it. Nor shall any woman stand before an animal to mate with it. It is a perversion. It's about mixing. He's going to talk about mixing here. He wants a pure people. Remember, everything is supposed to produce after its own kind, isn't it? Yehovah doesn't want mixture. He wants us to be, he says, holy men. You shall be holy as I am holy. This is what this is about. You shall not mate with an animal to defile yourself with it, nor shall any woman. Notice he's talking to men. Isn't he talking to men? It doesn't say you shall not defile or mate with an animal to defile yourself with it, nor shall any man stand before an animal to mate with it. No, that's not what we're talking about, is it? He's talking to the men. It's a perversion. Verse 20 or chapter 20, if a man mates with an animal, he shall surely be put to death, and you shall kill the animal. If a woman approaches any animal and mates with it, you shall kill the woman and the animal. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. It's a perversion. Yehovah plans for us to produce after our own seed. You will not find what, here we're talking about homosexuality. You won't find lesbianism in the Torah. Nowhere does it say a woman coming to a woman. You think you do. You think you see it. Doctrines and traditions of men see it. But what is the problem with two women being together? There's a problem. Remember, it's all about living according to Yehovah's created purpose for a man and Yehovah's created purpose for a woman. What did he tell the woman? Your desire shall be for your man, and he shall rule over you. So what's the sin of two women being together? I think the sin is no covering, no man, no relationship with Yehovah. They're not living according to their created purpose, and destruction becomes inevitable. You will not find what the Western culture calls lesbianism in Torah. In fact, you would be hard-pressed to find it even in the New Testament. Yeah, they think they see it in the New Testament. I'll talk about it in a second. The sin in this lifestyle is not sexual relations. They don't have seed. If there's no seed, there's no sexual relations between the two women. It's a rejection of a male covering, a male authority in their life. It is noticeably missing in this chapter, isn't it? It's not there. Here's what Paul says. I'm going to read it more the way it was supposed to be translated. For this cause Elohim gave them up unto vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. They were lying with animals. Yehovah hates the mixing of kind. And likewise also their men, leaving the natural use of women. Well, that's kind of what we were talking about for the man. The natural use, as a man does it with a woman, you shall not do. Burnt in their lust towards one another, men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of the error which was their due. Remember, what a man sows, he reaps. A man is going to be judged according to his fruits, according to his actions. He goes on, do not defile yourself with any of these things. Any of these things. We're talking about all the things that we've just read about. For by all these the nations are defiled. They don't care about these things. And when we're talking about nations, we're talking about the Goyim. Really, you could call them the Gentiles. That's the word we use right now, the Gentiles. For by these the Gentiles are defiled, which I am casting out before you. He's casting them out. But look at this. If he's casting him out, which I'm casting out before you, look at what the very next verse says. For the land is defiled. Therefore I visit the punishment of its iniquity upon it. And the land vomits out its inhabitants. Hear that? The land is going to vomit out its inheritance. How does that happen? I think we're going to see it in the last days. The wicked are removed from the earth, but the righteous remain in it. Oh, I could show you lots of verses. Here's just a couple. But the upright will dwell in the land. The upright are going to dwell in the land. The land's not going to vomit them out. And the blameless will remain in it. But the wicked will be cut off from the earth, the land. And the unfaithful will be uprooted from it. The righteous will never be removed, but the wicked will not inhabit the land. No, they're going to be vomited out of the land. Here again, we're talking about Goyim, the nations. You shall therefore keep my statutes, my statutes. Let's go right back to where we were talking about up here. Remember? You shall not do, nor shall you do according to, nor shall you walk in their ordinances. He says, you shall observe my judgments and my ordinances to walk in them. Here we're doing exactly the same things. You shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments, and shall not commit any of these abominations, either any. You shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments, and you shall not commit any of these abominations, either the Ezra or the Ger who gores among you. Wow. Any of your own nation. Okay, yeah, so here we are. Any of your own nation. This is so hard to understand. We're talking about the Ezra. This is what it is. The Ezra, the born in the land man. And the Ger who gores with you, who dwells with you. This is exactly what it's saying. They add all these other things. Who's he talking to? Who dwells with us? Who's us? Who's us? Who's you? The stranger who dwells with you. We have to go back to understand it. Here's what he's talking to. Leviticus 18:2. Speak to Israel's seed and say to them, I am Yehovah, your Elohim. The Ger dwell with us, but he's talking to the us. For all these abominations, the land's men is the word they're looking for. For all these abominations, the land's men have done, who were before you, and thus the land is defiled. The land's men have done. Not the land's ladies have done. The land's men have done. If a man turns from his wickedness and does according I forget how that goes in Ezekiel 18. If a man turns from his wickedness. I'm going to look it up. I've got to get it right. It's man. It's the man. I want to go here. Ezekiel, where are you? Ezekiel, there you are. Ezekiel 18. It's verse 24, 22. Somewhere in there. 21. But if a wicked man turns from his sins, which he has committed, keeps my statutes and does what is lawful and right, he shall surely live. He shall not die. None of the transgressions which you have committed shall be remembered against him, because the righteousness which he has done, he shall live. It's about the man. Noah did what was right in the sight of Yehovah. He was a man after his own heart. And his sons and his women and their nishim, their women, were on the ark because Noah was the one who walked with Elohim. Let's go back. Lest the land vomit you out also when you defile it, as it vomit out the nations, the goyim. Let's make sure that's what it says. Yep. The goy that were before you. Goy. That's what it is. The goy. Thy goy. The goy. That's not thy goy. The goy. The goy. The goy. That was before you. You know what? It's going to do it again. What has been is going to be done again. We'll see it. For whoever commits any of these abominations to Avah, the person who commits them shall be cut off from their people. The persons who commit them shall be cut off from their people. From their people. It's going to be a lot of them cut off, isn't it? Therefore you shall keep my ordinances. There he's going back to the beginning. You shall therefore walk in my statutes and my ordinances. Therefore you shall keep my ordinance, so that you may not commit any of these abominable customs which were committed before you, and that you do not defile yourself by them. I am Ani Yehovah Elohim. I am your Elohim. He's talking to Israel's seed. You know what? I'm going to stop here. Next week, we're going to try and get through, well, we're going to get through 19. We're probably going to be able to get through 20 as well. Remember, I said most of 20 seems to have the judgments related to the instructions, the statutes that if they're defiled, the ones that we learned today in 19 are defiled, or 18 are defiled. These are the judgments that are going to be held against us. So we'll talk about that next week as well. Hey, thanks for joining me this week. I appreciate it. Sorry we got such a late start. All right. Well, we'll see you soon. Love you tons. Bye now.